Hey there, I'm Taz Singh, and I've been working with communities for as long as I can remember. Fundamentally, communities are made up of people, so this is my journey going to those communities and talking to those people. Come along with me. Amazing, I'm back. I'm back here with Michael Chan. So I've been hanging out here at Reactathon in California and been running around with all my video equipment, my camera, my mic, my gimbal and everything. And Michael was one of the few guys that said, like that camera is like, that must be a ZV-E10 with a Peter McKinnon, variable ND with a Sony, essentially, I think it's EC1MB shotgun mic. Is that a Weeble 2 gimbal? And I'm just like, are you just calling me out on all my gear, dude? Like, how do you know all of this about my video equipment? Like, nobody guesses all of the video equipment like so dead on, especially not the first time around. And so I got talking with Michael, and he's actually just such a lovely guy that I said I need to kind of get him, on the channel for all of you. And so, yeah, I got to know Michael. Michael's from San Diego. Michael Chan, Chantastic, from San Diego. And you basically run a podcast.
Yeah,
you're getting into video yourself.
I am,
which is
that's
how
why
you
I was
kind of know about all these different things.
I've watched a lot of the videos, yeah. So I've seen a lot of the things that people recommend and like seen it all come together. So it's always kind of fun to just like spot things in the wild. Like, oh, hey, you're using that. Like, which videos did you use to like find all that stuff?
It's funny because like I do the same thing. So like over here they have like all these video people like running around trying to make like promotional content for next year's.
Yeah.
And I always go up to them. I'm like, is that like a red camera with like a variable? Like I keep talking to them about the.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you mind if I hold it? And they're like giving me like this like $12,000 like
it's
rig.
nuts.
I'm just like holding it. I'm just like, don't drop it, don't drop it, don't drop it.
Yeah, it's been really fun. This conference in
Yeah.
particular, because it's happening at an official like venue. They have all of the gear, right? And it's like it's really wild to be backstage and see all of this stuff that I've seen and like I know is like really like broadcast ready production gear, but to see it all like take place, see all of the people that it takes to operationalize like a broadcast, like it's just really fascinating. And yeah, it's just I've been kind of like just checking all the labels on everything as people like pass by. But one thing that kind of blew my mind is that there's like a real mix of equipment. It's like they got guys on like everything's represented. It's like they got guys on Reds and Canons and Sonys. And I was like, man, that must be a nightmare, both like in terms of equipment sharing, but then also just color grading. Like it seems like that would just be like that's above my ability right now.
No, you're right. I mean, like with all the different type of equipment and then like trying to get it all together and like edit it all and like trying to like the drone shots as well. They have like this drone that sounds like it's like 10 bees nests like glued together. It's like and like it's insane. Like there was a helicopter going over the other day and I was like, is that the helicopter? Is that just a drone? It's like it sounded so loud. Like they got like so much equipment here. But I'm sure for you, so I started talking to Michael, and I'm sure for you, like you're looking at all this because like essentially Michael used to be an accountant, and so I've only come to learn that Michael used to be an accountant back in essentially through the financial crisis.
Yeah. So I was doing accounting, and actually something that I hadn't talked with you about before that's just kind of coming back into my mind as we talk about equipment and stuff is that even before that, like I went to college to study sound engineering.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I studied sound engineering, did some like live sound and like recording arts type of stuff there.
And it was like DJ Chantastic or something?
No. I've never been a good DJ, but I did love the studio. Like I loved just like kind of sitting in that enclosed space, having all of that cool gear and like just kind of like figuring, like making a sound from nothing. Right? That was one of my favorite things.
I feel like he could be a pretty good dubstep DJ. I mean, he already has the hair for it. You know what I mean? Like you just got that DJ on stage, like flicking the hair around. Exactly. There you go. It's like either that or basically rock and roll. Like there's no middle ground. He's definitely not a country singer.
Yeah, and I did get out of it. I did, man. I mean, back in the day, this was, I mean, probably like 2000. I was in like an emo band, and definitely like a lot of like screaming and hair flipping and whatever, all that kind of stuff.
Oh man, that's so cool. So you went from being the coolest guy alive to being an accountant. What?
I've never framed it like that, but yeah. That's So I was doing all that stuff. My band, as bands go, there's always this guy who's like just a total. I mean, I'm not sure what the language is here, but like a jerk, right? And so. I'm bringing it down quite a bit, right? Like, just we'll go with jerk, but like, here's a jerk, and then like, everything just kind of like fell apart. Like, I was like, I don't want to like be on the road with like you living like this, like thinking that you're all awesome now that we have this like tiny crappy band or something like that. So I quit, and I decided to finish off. Just get like a normal degree, and my dad has been like a lifelong entrepreneur.
So you quit and you weren't like, I'm going solo, I'm going out on my own.
No. Yeah, I've never, I've honestly never been a really good like solo person. Yeah, and I hope to get there eventually, but it's just I've always enjoyed doing things like this, right? Like the riffing and the collaboration.
And we never talked about the instrument that you played. Do you play like essentially like an oboe or something? Like something very difficult to go solo on. You see Michael in the background with an oboe. Like, I'm going solo. I'm out on my own, boys. I'm going emo oboe on my own.
Hey, that'd be a great YouTube channel.
Emo oboe.
Emo oboe.
It's basically oboe ska music.
I love it. That's an idea for somebody. Someone's gonna take that to like 1 million and over.
You're welcome.
So I just I kind of, I was like doing that thing, and then I just decided to kind of like, play it safe a little bit. I decided to get like just kind of standard kind of, like business management degree, or I finished it off doing that. And then I was working with my dad. He had an import and export business, had always been an entrepreneur. And I was like, well, I can do a little bit of kind of like the web, print marketing, and just kind of like business management type stuff, like paying the bills and doing all the kind of working with the accountants and all that kind of stuff. And so primarily it was like business management, accounting, all that kind of stuff. And it was just like really boring. And I kind of had this like mixed, but like stable, right?
Yeah, boring but stable. Yeah.
And I kind of had this mixed blessing, I guess, of that right around the Great Recession, that business going under and then being forced to actually go out again and like figure out kind of what I liked and, kind of pursue things that were a little bit more like creatively fulfilling and interesting.
Yeah. Well, I guess accounting during the Great Recession got very easy. Everything just went to zero.
Yeah.
Like, and zero.
Yeah, totally.
You're also a zero.
And I tried for about a year.
But you're also
everyone's zeroed out.
Zero. I'm so sorry, everyone.
It's like that scene at the end of Fight Club, right? And they just like they take down the financial system and everything resets. It was really interesting because I kind of held on to it for a little bit. I was like, no, I can make this work. But then I remember specifically there was a moment where I went to an interview for an accounting, like an entry-level accounting job at the city of Encinitas. Okay. And I was like, and it was like a kind of like a group thing, or like an open job, whatever. And so, okay, there'll be like a handful of people there, like, it's like an entry-level job, like not too exciting. And so I go, and there are, I think, like 700 people, like some of them with like master's degrees in like finance and whatnot. And I just left. I was like, okay, like the world has changed. I have to figure out something else that I want to do. Yeah. And so I just kind of pushed into the website. I'd always been like kind of fascinated by the web. Like I find the web like incredibly alluring. Yeah. Like the idea that
I mean, you know what they say, web developers are kind of the rock stars of the developer space. And so there you go. He came back with his oboe.
Emo oboe web developer. That's quite a niche.
Well, you made it work, my friend. So you made it work. I love it. So you found your kind of like you found web dev kind of appeal to you. Yeah. And then you started getting more into that.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated. Like the web is fascinating, right? Like there's that kind of like David Bowie quote talking about the web, and like I can't remember. We should I don't know. Maybe someone can find it, and you can like insert it into this video or whatever. but the way that David Bowie talks about the web. It's very like alluring, like an organism, like this whole thing that like we didn't even fully comprehend. Like we thought we were making it, but really it's like making us.
Right.
And I think that it was very prophetic. Like this was back in like the 80s or something that Bowie said that. And I just love that idea because I do think the web the web is really one of the only platforms that makes this promise of like if you make a website that works today, it should work for forever.
Right.
And that is wild.
That
right?
is insane. Yeah.
Yeah, it's obscene almost, right? Like it's very like counterintuitive, and I think that that's something. It's very alluring, and it really attracted me to the web. The fact that these things could theoretically persist for forever.
Right.
And
right. Like I don't think you want my bad code to persist for forever. You want that stuff deleted and gone. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Like as a platform, it's a really cool concept. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It's very philosophical, I think.
Yeah.
Right. And it's kind of impractical and weird. And we figured out ways to like make money off of it, lots of money off of it, and make it practical. But in its nature, it's impractical.
Yeah.
And I love that about it.
Yeah.
Like it's strange, right? And so I love that about the web. And so it was, I was like, you know what? I figure I can probably get some gigs on Craigslist for just like, just doing like PSD to HTML stuff, right?
I did that stuff too. Yeah. I can relate. It's like all those odd jobs on Craigslist. Paying you a couple $100, and
I was coming in at like $15 an hour.
$15 an hour.
Yeah,
wow.
it was just bottom of the barrel. I was doing like email signatures for people.
What?
Like yeah. It was like very bottom of the barrel kind of stuff.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Jeez. Okay. But like, so you went from accounting, where you kind of got out of that. Web appealed to you. Got into web through like oddball Craigslist jobs. Doing like email signatures and stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and then just rolled that. I mean, it's kind of funny when you're in that like early stage. It's like you just like continually rolling it forward, right? And it's like you can't be ashamed of like anything you did because it's just like you keep like putting it on your resume. Like everything is like just you're like adding line items to your resume, and eventually like kind of rolled that into like a full-time job, and was in the fortunate position to actually at that job, really, like at my first job, unlock what kind of became my passion in the web, which is design systems and component libraries. And I guess more specific...
It sounds like a lot of trial and error. It sounds like a lot of trial and error, a lot of discovery, a lot of like, okay, I did this thing worked well, I did this other thing, this thing didn't work well, you know what I mean? Like I'm guessing your rate slowly increased kind of as you got more confident as well. But a lot of trial and error, I'm assuming. It's like how long did that take you to kind of go from, as you were saying, like oddball Craigslist jobs to like that first job that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so I think it was about, and so I did have a little bit of experience going into it just because like I was doing a little bit of web stuff, for our company. Just like managing a website.
You mean like using Notepad or using Dreamweaver, using Front Page?
Oh, good question.
Was it like using any sort of editor? Was it like actually writing HTML and CSS and
Yeah, so I've always been like a little bit of I don't know. I'm kind of like a super nerd when it comes to like technology like type stuff. And so I tried the WordPress thing, but it was like I was just like super grossed out by the output. And so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like I'm gonna do it on hard mode. I'm gonna learn what all of these elements are, these attributes. And so I'm trying to remember. It was I can't remember the name of the editor. TextMate.
TextMate. Oh, I love TextMate.
TextMate was amazing.
So good. It's so clean, so pretty. It's so nice and easy to use.
Yeah. One of my favorite things. This is so funny. It's all kind of like floating back to me now. Like one of my favorite things was that if you had like a CSS or like JS file, you could like grab it from the file explorer and just drag it onto your HTML file. And it would put the whole like style or link tag like in there for you.
Oh wow.
It was, like, there were so many like really nice little niceties in TextMate that just sent it.
And I remember like back in those days, like this was around like 2008 to 2010, like that.
2010,
2010,
right around
that phase. I think like all the screencasts and everything were using TextMate as well.
Everything was using TextMate.
So like if you were learning to be a web dev back then, you're like, if all these people are using it, like maybe I should use it too. So it was just kind of a no-brainer to use it.
Extremely fashionable. Yeah. So I really loved it, and I spent a lot of time just learning the basics, and kind of went on to really dive into CSS. I kind of, I feel like when you're early in your career, you kind of have to figure out what your unfair advantages are.
Right.
And for me, it was like a lot of people wanted to be working in PHP and MySQL, right? Or like all that kind of stuff. Like that was the thing that people wanted to do. Or like even JavaScript was like kind of like starting to grow in popularity. It was like the Paul Irish era where like, like jQuery and all that. And they were talking about really cool stuff that you could do with JavaScript. Scriptaculous and like all those cool libraries.
I love Scriptaculous. Oh my God, yes, Scriptaculous was so good. For me, I was a big MooTools guy.
Yes,
I love MooTools so much. Like, MooTools was my calling. Because I remember like back then I wanted to make like slick animations. MooTools had the slickest animations. I think they basically consolidated all the animations onto like one timer, like one centralized timer, and did all the animation calculations in like one frame tick. You know what I mean?
That's so rad.
While like every other like JavaScript animation library was doing each animation individually, and that just caused it to like basically stutter. While MooTools was like the smoothest thing ever, and I was like, I want to use a JavaScript library called MooTools. I mean, like how does it moo? Where are the tools? I don't know. But,
and their documentation was really clean compared to jQuery. It was like such a beautiful page, and it's funny because there's a lot of we're at a React conference right now, and there was a lot of potential energy in both MooTools and Meteor of all places. And it's crazy because like React and Jest, which are huge tools like for the front end space right now, both kind of came out of, if not directly from MooTools, from like the team and like the way of thinking that MooTools represented.
No, you're right. I think I forget which JavaScript community, but like there's one JavaScript community out there where there's a lot of like former MooTools core engineers that are now working. Like I don't know if it's like Vue or if it's React or what, but there's one community out there. I think it might be Vue. I forget. Definitely correct me in the comments and tell me which one it is.
They will.
But they better. But like I think there's one community out there, and there's like a very disproportionate number of like MooTools core contributors on that team, and I'm like, that's so cool. I love those vibes. But anyway, back to your story. So your calling was CSS.
Yeah, and so that was kind of the unfair advantage that I picked. I was like, okay, so I go to the office every day, and the thing that people are complaining about the most, the thing that they hate working with the most, the thing that doesn't excite them and they wish they could get rid of was CSS.
Interesting.
Now, CSS was a different story back then, right? Like, so this is like, CSS now is actually like pretty freaking great.
Yeah.
Back then, this was like, I mean, I think we had just relinquished support for like IE5, so it was like 6 plus, right? But these were like the different versions of IE were like completely different browsers.
Michael, I'm not sure if I told you. Do you know why they call it IE?
Why? Tell me.
Because that's the sound developers make when they have to use it. IE!
Love it. I mean, and it's kind of fun. It's like full circle right now, right? Because that was 2010-ish, right? And like now it's 2022, and like finally we're seeing the last Internet Explorer version,
like finally IE is dead.
Yeah. Which is really exciting. And I mean, I don't know. Like I am definitely on the side that like diversity in browser engines is important, but we still have 3. And so I think that's good. That's enough.
That's good. I mean, and credit where credit's due. I mean, IE did advance the space quite dramatically.
Totally.
IE did onboard quite a lot of users onto the web. IE is what gave us all jobs at the end of the day. I mean, it gave us a lot of work to accommodate IE.
Yeah.
A lot of billable hours in there. And so credit where credit's due. I mean, IE was a useful technology for a lot of people. Just obviously as web developers, it was a bit annoying to kind of develop for and kind of accommodate. But
and I think honestly, it was responsible for like a lot of the popularity of the web too. It was just Netscape before that, and then IE shipping on every machine in the world that you bought was like a really big boon for the web, I think.
Yeah. 100%. So CSS was the annoying thing back then because like your colleagues or so on and so forth, they didn't want to accommodate IE.
So it was just a real nightmare because you had to do all these weird hacks. You had to know certain like really specific things about elements. Like I remember a lot of times like a lot of people would have trouble with. Oh man, I'm trying to remember what it is. I think it's still an issue actually, but like when you would, if you had a list, you're trying to do like semantic markup and you had like a list of things, but you want to collapse it horizontally to make it a menu or whatever. There's like this little gap that shows up for the list items that you kind of have to like do some kind of funky things to get rid of.
I'm not sure if you remember Spacer.gif.
I do, yeah.
Spacer.gif was my jam. Spacer.gif made everything work perfectly.
So good, yeah.
Everything worked perfectly.
Great technique. I mean, we still kind of do that with Flexbox, right? Like that, like kind of like spacer elements that just kind of, you know, push things out.
Yeah. It's kind of like it's kind of like div class spacer now.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then like I think IE had like it was obviously box model bug, but then I think IE 6 didn't support transparency, or was that 5? I forget.
Oh yeah. And one of
like,
them, I think 6.
And so like it didn't support like I think transparent PNGs or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it rendered it all like essentially opaque as a background while you wanted a transparent background.
Yeah.
And so like that was a pain to like accommodate as well. And so
back in the day it was all about like your bag of tricks. You know, if you were a like front end developer, it wasn't necessarily about standards. Like really, like we were all trying to like do progressive enhancement or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was like who had the biggest bag of tricks?
Yeah.
Of like I got all my SVG and my PNG and my floating and like all that stuff like just tucked away in case you need it. You know.
Yeah. I hear you. So you kind of specialize in CSS, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
And
so I specialized in CSS, and I was really fortunate because I had committed so much to CSS. They were doing this project at work where they wanted to kind of build sites for people, and so we had this kind of unbranded or white labeled thing, and then we would have designers go in and they would add some customizations in Photoshop.
Yep.
And then we would go out and do the build. And they were dreadfully inefficient, right? So I had to do a handful of these. And so I was kind of like at the forefront building these. And I was like, you know what, I think that we could operationalize this if we just did these handful of things. Like if we changed the PSD exports and had like consistent names, like we could just drop those in and we could do all this kind of stuff. And then, if we set up these kind of like variable schemas, for the handoff, we could just like put all this stuff in.
Right.
And so I was like in that task of operationalizing design. And this was before like design systems was a thing, or developer productivity, or like, before a lot of those things were a thing. It was just kind of like, how can we communicate between the people who are delivering PSDs to the people who are like writing HTML?
Right.
And I really like that. And kind of from that point forward.
Before like Figma or or like there's other tools like that people use to kind of take a design and kind of translate that into like HTML, CSS.
Yep.
I'm forgetting a lot of them right now.
But, there were so many over the years.
There's like Zeppelin as well.
Yeah, Zeppelin's out there.
Like Zeppelin like was good. Like obviously Figma now and like so on and so forth. But before all of this existed.
Sketch maybe was one of them for a while.
Yep. So
it was like it was just a really fun time, and I kind of went on to do a similar thing for kind of these unbranded or like co-branded types of things with a bunch of like Fortune 500 companies, and just kind of really developing my skills in that.
It came a long way from gig work on Craigslist, that's for sure.
Yeah. And I feel like honestly, I feel like that's the power of finding an unfair advantage, right? Like looking for a problem that needs to be solved that nobody wants to solve.
Right.
And I think it's a little bit harder now. There's not a lot of things that like people like hate doing, and there's enough people in the industry where it's like everyone loves a certain part of it. So it's a little bit trickier now, but I think that part of it is really fun. And honestly, that kind of will take us to kind of another thing, which I think is like content creation is really hard. And I think that is one of those things now where I think a lot of developers could have an unfair advantage.
But make sure you don't do what I'm doing. Yeah. Coming after you, Michael Chan. He's like, I know all this video equipment. I'm doing exactly the same thing. No. I mean, like the more the merrier, of course.
Oh, totally. There's
more the
so
merrier.
much space, infinite amount of space to be able to.
Infinite amount of space, an infinite amount of stories to tell, or infinite amount of types of content to create. So, for me, I'd love to see it, obviously, right? And I'd love to see essentially what you end up doing as well with with this video equipment.
Totally.
He's gonna steal this after the show.
This is mine now.
But he's gonna do it.
I'm gonna be editing this video.
Hello, I am Taz. But yeah, awesome, dude. So you kind of found your kind of calling there.
Yeah.
And is that what kind of took you to where you are now, or like?
I'd say. Yeah, I think to an extent that is what kind of like brought me along the way. I spent the next 8 or 9 years, I can't even remember, like at one company, kind of doing the same thing. We were they had a single product and knew how to manage that, and they were branching out horizontally to like build a suite of products. And that was just kind of like my wheelhouse at that point. And so I got hired on as like a Rails developer.
Oh, I love
but
Rails.
I kept like kind of like finding a way to like kind of like stick my nose into the conversations about how we were going to scale a system horizontally and do all that kind of stuff. And eventually, like, they just found me so annoying. They just like let me just do it. They're like, you seem to care about this, and all of us don't.
This guy won't stop pestering us about this thing. Fine, just go do the thing.
It's true. Yeah. One of my coworkers was always he was like, he's like, you're like a drippy faucet, right? Like, it's just like you just kind of continually like drip yourself into the conversation until like we all give up.
You on LinkedIn. Like, I'm going to endorse you on LinkedIn for being essentially a leaky faucet after this.
Yeah, I don't like to pester, but I like to like make my presence known, right? Like,
oh my God. This guy sounds like a joy to work with. He just like goes in there.
I'm a
like,
real pain in the ass,
he's
for
like,
sure.
I'm gonna redo all the CSS. I'm gonna continually complain about this thing.
I mean, here's the thing: as long as you're doing it right, like I'll let it be your problem. Right?
Yeah. I mean, that's true.
But yeah, so that was the thing. I just kind of like continued to push in the direction of my interests, and eventually did that. And I learned a ton. I mean, like building. And that was what my talk at Reactathon was about, was just kind of the huge amount of complexity that gets created as you start building out your business, right? And it starts with just like a handful of views, and like you're super excited because you have like, all these views are really nice and tailored, and then it becomes about like, okay, well, like what does this view look like under these kind of sub-brand conditions in light mode and dark mode and high contrast and like screen reader and like all this stuff. It's like, it's so wild right now.
Yeah, it basically like multiplies, right?
Oh my gosh, and it's multiplies. Like exponential. Like every year it gets more and more challenging. We have higher and higher expectations.
And then you start factoring in essentially different locales and the different languages and like
right to left.
It's
nuts. It's wild. Yeah. It really is. And in the talk, I kind of talked about like just using our criteria. We had just on a standard view, if you consider all of the viewports and the localization and the browsers we're supporting and all that kind of stuff, any single view had 35,000 possible exact permutations where they were supposed like perfect states, right? And that's not even introducing like combinatorial logic where like you have two props or whatever that actually make a third state. Like it's just absolutely mind-boggling.
Wow.
And like most of the time browsers are good enough now that most of the time it works, but like that's nuts. Right?
That's insane. Like, how do you test for that? How do you account for that? How do you, scale that across a team, right? Yeah.
So and so that's kind of like what brought me to like what I'm doing now. Is the place I work now is a company called Chromatic, and we maintain an open source library called Storybook. And
okay, cool.
Yeah.
I love Storybook.
Storybook's great. It's a really great way to kind of like create a gallery for your components, your views and like design systems and all that kind of stuff. I really I love it for that. I think it's really great. And then Chromatic kind of helps with that exponential problem where it's like you have your components and all that kind of stuff displayed the way that you want, and then what Chromatic does is it integrates with your CI and your GitHub workflows in order to basically run a test and then snapshot all of the possible, across all of the browsers, across all of the breakpoints, for all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It just goes off and it does that and like tests everything. It's like an army of like visual QA, right?
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
And then just tells you like, hey, today you didn't break anything. Like, go with God, like go forth. And then if you do break something kind of unintentionally, it gives you an opportunity to kind of evaluate, this component is used in these ways in these places, so I need to consider that.
I'm also sure essentially if you're meaning to change something, it'll tell you, hey, this thing did change.
Yes.
And you can say, yes, like that change is basically intentional.
Yes,
exactly.
exactly.
You probably do that as well, right?
Yes,
and then from that point onwards, it's going to account for that.
It's interesting because we do have, and a lot of times you might have some, like you're mentioning, like some things where it changes, but actually like changes for the better, right?
Yeah,
or it changes with intentionality. And
right.
like, okay, cool. Like now these actually adhere better to the system. And so, so we don't, it's not, it's neither like pass or fail. It's kind of like
like essentially something's changed.
Yes, something's changed.
Is this change intentional or not?
Yes.
Yes, then we're gonna remember that for the future. No, okay, you might want to go fix it.
Yeah. So it's really great for that, and I really love it. And so I joined them to kind of progress this idea of just improving the UX of the web and helping teams. I guess just be more efficient, use technology to their advantage, to have an unfair advantage over some other companies.
Yeah. That's so awesome. I mean, like for you, like building applications is difficult. You change one line of code and suddenly it has impact across your entire app.
Yeah.
So being able to just verify on this level all those different permutations, I mean, like that's just mind blowing.
Yeah,
to me. And
it's
so
like the
cool.
Family Guy like CSS meme with the blinds and. Great overlay opportunity right there.
Oh my God.
But yeah, it's like that, and like to have someone like to just be able to like pull the string and then have a robot be like, oh yeah, this isn't working because X, Y, and Z, and you're like, oh cool, like now I can fix that.
Yeah. That's amazing. But yeah, dude, it was so good talking to you.
Yeah, an absolute pleasure.
So Michael is what you're doing DevRel now at Chromatic.
Yeah. So I think technically it's like a DX engineer, like community engineer or something like that. But yeah, it's like my job right now is to kind of bring Chromatic from just strictly design systems to really like moving into that engineering space, because I mean, like the amount of engineers that are focusing on UI specifically, that part of the pie is just growing more and more and more every day.
Yeah.
And so I just want to help people like have fewer like things that are just constantly on their brain, and like do the work that's like that they enjoy doing, right? The thought work, the stuff that it, like. And not think about like, oh, if I do this, it's gonna break that, and like, oh, I gotta, like all that stuff is worthless, right?
Yeah.
Like the robots can do that, man.
Yeah. And I think this is why I enjoy Michael so much, is because I got to meet him here, and I got to talk to him here, and he's just like such a friendly, nice guy that like just legitimately wants to help people, do better things, and just go out there and just make people's lives better. And so, highly recommend checking him out. Chantastic. You used to do a podcast.
Yeah.
You might revive the podcast.
I might revive the podcast.
You might get into video as well.
Yeah, so I have a handful of places you can find me. So like Chantastic on Twitter. Also have a YouTube channel. It's kind of been neglected. It's mostly code stuff before. Going to shift more into content stuff at Chantastic as well. We're doing some really cool stuff if you're into Storybook on the Storybook.js channel on YouTube. And I have a Discord community that I absolutely love. It's discord.gg/lunchdev.
Oh wow, that's cool. Oh wow.
Yeah. And we just
awesome.
we have some like fun little like lunch events, and support each other's streams, and just kind of be an audience and community that shows up for each other.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Make sure to go check them out. All right. Well, good talking to you. See you next time.
Thanks for being here.